Thanks for downloading the Friday Night Comedy podcast from Radio 4. If you want to find out more, visit bbc.co.uk/Radio 4. But not until you've enjoyed The Now Show! Show?
Thank you very much indeed. Hello, I'm Steve Punt.
And I'm Hugh Dennis.
And welcome to The Now Show.
With us are Marcus Brigstocke, Laura Shavin, Mitch Benn and special guest Andi Osho.
So, FIFA handed Russia the World Cup on the very same day that we learned from WikiLeaks that US diplomats describe Russia as a mafia state. We also know from WikiLeaks that Prince Andrew once said,
Americans don't understand geography. Never have.
Now, the newspapers denounced this as an appalling diplomatic gaffe, which
verged on the rude.
Verging on rude? Verging? No son of mine verges on rude, lad. Here, take this list and bloody learn that there's some crackers in there. 50 years I've been working on that. 2 or 3 choice insults for every continent. Here, look at this one for the Japanese.
Now, let's stop there. But not only did Andrew malign Americans' grasp of the outside world, but he went on to add,
in the UK, we have the best geography teachers in the world.
Now, fair enough, but why is that in an intelligence report? It makes geography teachers sound like the SAS, parachuting into remote areas of Afghanistan, going...
Right, Lima 49, take a look up ahead. What do you see?
It looks to me like a classic glaciated landscape, sir.
Get a squad up there, take some pictures. Then we've got to move on to the second objective, a base-level river showing meandering and oxbow lakes.
Yes, sir.
I will tell the lads to be careful. The Taliban can hear corduroy rustling from 3 kilometres.
So why on earth was that comment in an intelligence report? Did it get the operations room at the Pentagon buzzing?
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. President, sir. We've just intercepted a communique from Great Britain.
What did it say?
It said, British geography teachers are the best in the world, sir.
My God, we prayed this day would never come. Get me the Joint Chiefs. We move on to DEFCON 1 and get Sarah Palin on the phone. I need to check we've got the right target.
And in more royal revelations, HRH also apparently was told in 2008 that only those willing to engage in corrupt practices could make money in Kyrgyzstan. And he responded by saying,
sounds exactly like France.
Yes, and given that just 3 years earlier, 47 French politicians were tried for 90 million euros worth of corrupt contracts while Jacques Chirac was mayor of Paris, that sounds about right too. Many of the supposed revelations in the leaked material are similarly odd. One communique claims that Lee Kuan Yew, a Singaporean statesman, had described North Korea's Kim Jong-il as
a flabby old chap.
Ooh, that's got to sting, hasn't it? See, I personally would have thought mad, nepotistic, population-starving dictator old chap would have been better. But, of course, Kim Jong-il was able to respond.
Sticks and stones may break my bones, but intercontinental ballistic missiles can hurt you.
North Korea, of course, are actually more worried to learn that China favours a reunited Korea. China is, of course, baffled by the whole idea of WikiLeaks in the first place. They still have those computers where you type in Tiananmen Square and it comes back...
Nothing found. Did you mean to search for lifetime in prison?
There was more, though. The US Embassy in Moscow described President Medvedev as...
pale and hesitant, plays Robin to Putin's Batman.
And Putin was so annoyed about this, he didn't bother to go to Zurich for the World Cup vote. Almost as if he knew he wouldn't need to. But... in any case, though, I actually rather like that idea, and I'd like to know the rest of the cast.
Batman and Robin meet their match with Nicolas Sarkozy as the Penguin, Angela Merkel as Catwoman, and Nick Clegg as Two-Face.
The amount of fuss made about these revelations, I mean, you'd think they were military secrets and locations of secret missile bases inside volcanoes. And come to think of it, WikiLeaks figurehead Julian Assange does sound like a bit of a Bond villain with his own evil plans.
So, Mr. Bond, we meet at last.
You fiend, what are you planning?
I'm the head of a secret organization. Mildly embarrassing revelations through diplomatic email, or MAD. When I press this button, 250,000 items of bitchy gossip will flood the world's press.
You'll never get away with this.
You know? And what will the British be able to do? It's 2010, and you still sound like Sean Connery.
That's because I'm Daniel Craig doing his Sean Connery impression. And on my signal, this roof will open and 100 of the world's best geography teachers will descend on the ropes and show you how volcanoes work while I rescue the beautiful Miss Eyelash.
The UK turned up in the cables. It seems the Governor of the Bank of England, Mervyn King, said David Cameron and George Osborne were out of their depth.
Have you read this, George? Mervyn King thinks you don't know what you're doing.
Oh, thank goodness for that. I thought it was just me.
The first thing that many people looked for, of course, was what the cables had to say about Silvio Berlusconi, including, of course, Silvio Berlusconi.
Signor Berlusconi, the Americans say you are vain and ineffective.
Hey, that is a lie. Hundreds of girls can tell you I'm surprisingly effective for a man of my age. What else is in these cables?
Well, it is some discussion of the flabby old chap.
Oh, so they've seen those pictures too, eh?
Yes.
These kinds of things are always double-edged. The fact that you're in the reports at all is surely a mark of status. You could argue that omission from the reports is the biggest insult of all.
Right, Nicola, let's have a look and see what the intelligence leaks make of the Scottish National Party. Search under Salmond.
Salmon fishing, salmonella, Samantha Fox, Lord Saruman. You're not in here, Alex.
Curse you, America! I'm a flabby old chap too!
To publish or not to publish? That seems to be the question that no newspaper on the planet seems to have had much trouble answering.
The same question the BBC had to face on Monday with Panorama. Should they have questioned FIFA's ethics just 3 days before the vote? Did it decrease England's chances against its rivals, Russia? The English bit, of course, was in trouble the moment they decided to stage the matches in the ancestral home of football, Milton Keynes. Clearly, Sepp decided that if it was a choice between waking up with a Russian's horse's head in his bed and waking up in Buckinghamshire's monument to the roundabout, it was horsey every time.
So, gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Mitch Benn.
Oh, North Korea, you're bombing your neighbors and causing a jam. It would appear once again all your toys have flown out of your pram. Have we not been paying you enough attention? In the press and TV you've had scarcely a mention. You're whipping up some international tension now. In North Korea, the world's only functioning theocracy. It's already clear just who the next beloved leader will be. 'Cause Kim Jong is iller than anyone's saying. The princeling in public they've started displaying. He's itching to do some dictating and hold sway now. If you only had soul, you think life would be finer. As world bullies go, you're still really quite minor. And WikiLeaks says you can't hide behind China now.
So, the drive continues to bring back Victorian values, and this week the government have introduced genuine Dickensian weather. And struggling through it to be here is this week's stand-up guest. Why wait for a tour next year when she's right here, inside your radio? Please welcome Andi Osho.
Thank you very much. Well, it's been a big week for reality shows, especially The X Factor, which saw Simon Cowell cleverly derail the Facebook campaign that attempted to derail The X Factor by saying,
It's my show, so I can make up the rules.
Yes, Cal has finally booted half-man, half-wolf Brazilian oddball Wagner off the show. Mark Mordew, who ran the Facebook campaign for Wagner to win, described the singer as a breath of fresh air. And I agree, if by breath of fresh air you mean tone-deaf dogman. He had to go. So badly did Wagner murder the Beatles, he made Mark Chapman look like an amateur. But for some reason, folks don't seem to mind Wagner's shouty warbling. There's even another Facebook page with 13,000 people signed up who want Wagner to be the new Go Compare guy. What an excellent idea, because I don't think those ads are quite annoying enough. What they need is a delusional, talent-free freak to really sell the product. What are we going to have next?
This brand new HD television might look like a monstrous carbuncle. But you'll be able to see my wondrous Dutchy gingerbread man conquer the world in 3D.
But Wagner is by no means the first novelty-heavy performer to mobilise ironic audience support. Just look at Strictly Come Dancing, where every week we've been able to enjoy Anne Widdecombe hoofing around the dance floor, with the season highlight being her winched high above a very nervous-looking Strictly audience. I can understand why. After all, it's bad enough when a pigeon poops on you. We're halfway through the National Anger Awareness Week, and it's been reported that binge drinking, or as it's known in the UK, drinking, is on the increase amongst young women and is causing aggressive behaviour. The disturbing trend has been highlighted by the British Association of Anger Management, or BAM. I called them earlier to find out more. They said,
"We're busy!"
Obviously, binge drinking is a problem. George Osborne's latest initiative to curb it is a super tax on extra-strength lagers like Special Brew. Sorry to break it to you, George, but the people who drink Special Brew are not binge drinkers, they're alcoholics. And their drinking is not predicated on price. It's a nonsense. Calling these guys binge drinkers is like calling Tiger Woods a binge adulterer. However, I dug a little deeper into binge drinking amongst the young and discovered this interesting fact. Research shows that the people who are more likely to drink daily are the baby boomer generation. Probably because your binge drinking 30-year-old daughters are still living at home, draining your income, meaning you can't retire until you're 80 because she needs a deposit for a flat. 8% of male baby boomers binge drink at least weekly. Tony Blair, in his recent book, claimed to be a heavy drinker, sometimes guzzling as much as half a bottle of wine and a G&T in one sitting. What are you, 9? That's not drinking. That would make the worst AA meeting ever.
Yeah, first of all, can I say hi? You know, occasionally I have been known to have a second glass of wine after dinner. Group hug.
Despite all these reports of aggression amongst women this week, as a result of an 18-month review, the Ministry of Defence have decided to uphold the policy banning female soldiers from hand-to-hand fighting on the front line. Maybe they're missing a trick and they should send these beer-guzzling ladettes to Afghanistan. The war would be over in days. They'd give the Taliban a thrashing, starting with some judgmental stares, before building up to name-calling, then pulling out chunks of their hair whilst one of them stands over them shouting, "Leave it, it ain't worth it!" If binge drinking really is to blame for the increase in aggressive behaviour, this means the war in Iraq may well be the result of one massive piss-up that's just gone horribly, horribly wrong. I wonder if the next leaked cable to be uncovered will be a bleary confession from Tony Blair going,
"Oh, my head. Remind me never to do that again."
That's it from me. Thank you very much.
Now, the government announced its public health plans this week. It turns out to mean letting Mars, Pepsi and McDonald's be in charge of anti-obesity campaigns and giving children shopping vouchers for walking to school. Now, these can then be exchanged for a variety of things. Some of the vouchers are for Topshop, run, of course, by Philip Green, an old-fashioned man who believes in getting young people busy, making T-shirts in Mauritius for 40p an hour. Other incentives include cinema tickets, which is another terrific idea to discourage child obesity.
There you are, 2 tickets to Screen 7.
Right, and 2 mega buckets of toffee popcorn and a vat of Coke, please.
Adults will be in on it too. They'll get vouchers for half-price swimming sessions.
Yeah, although to save money, these will be in the local canal. But the scheme is nice and easy.
Vouchers will be given in chequebook form.
Each chequebook contains 20 healthy lifestyle vouchers with a total discount of around £5.
To redeem a voucher, consumers will need to visit a website.
Search for the nearest participating venue.
Type in a code from the chequebooks.
They'll then be issued with an e-ticket.
Print off the e-ticket.
You take your printed e-ticket to your local swimming pool for a half-price swim. It's as simple as that.
And as the books contain a total discount of around £5 and there are 20 vouchers, each voucher is worth a whopping 25 pence. Whoa! It's all part of a new approach. Now, do you remember when Labour was in power that public health campaigns were the nanny state? Well, that's all changed because now the policy is going to move
From nannying to nudging.
Although exactly how that works, we're not sure.
You're interested in public health reform, eh?
Beg your pardon?
Public health, eh? Eh? Nudge, nudge, eh? Eh?
Public health?
Gym vouchers, eh? Ring-fence pot of NHS money, nudge, nudge.
Who are you?
Your wife. Is she keen on exercise? Does she jog, eh? Eh? Likes a workout, know what I mean? Nudge, nudge. Swim, swim, say no more.
Are you offering my wife some sort of discount on keep fit activities?
No, yes. It's our new policy, nudge, nudge.
Look, I'm terribly sorry, Mr.
Lansley, Andrew Lansley, Secretary of State for Health, eh? Must go. Got to give Eric Pickles his salad voucher.
Likewise, nudge theory has led to the government's suggestion that cigarette packets be made plain white rather than highly branded to stop people impulse buying them. The Health Secretary said,
"It is wrong that children are being attracted to smoke by glitzy designs on packets."
He went on,
"They should be attracted by the smooth, satisfying taste of coolness." And sophistication, eh? Bit of reverse psychology, eh? Nudge, nudge.
Other examples of nudge theory working are apparently signs in supermarkets that say,
Most people here have bought 2 pieces of fruit.
which apparently does encourage people to buy more fruit, although not necessarily eat it. A more accurate sign would read,
Most people here have bought 9 or 10 pieces of fruit which sat in their bowl for 2 weeks before it went furry.
Eh? Furry, eh? And in any case, it may well be that the nation's youth are not as unfit as we thought, because students were out in the fresh air for the 3rd week running. They were running around, they were lifting heavy objects. The police actually found it quite hard to keep up with them. And they tried to deal, you may have read, with the protesters by using something called
a preemptive kettle,
which I think we used to call a teasmade. Ed Miliband said he'd felt quite tempted to go and address the students, where he would have been met with cheers and joyful cries of, "Who's that?"
The Daily Mail inadvertently helped to recruit more students to the march this time, as their coverage of the last one centred on providing lots of pictorial evidence that there were girls there.
Yes, and as a result, this week's protest was full of male second-year engineering students trying to look sensitive. There were also protests about corporate tax avoidance, with demonstrations planned outside branches of Topshop,
which are likely to be broken up by gangs of school children determined to spend their vouchers. At the same time as bribing children to walk to school, the government has also been trying to cut funding for school sports, clearly thinking that if they can make the kids exercise on the way into and out of school, they won't actually need to do any exercise while they're there.
Yeah, it's a cunning plan, really. I mean, if you can do your PE on the way in, then maybe the next policy is going to be get them to do maths on the way in too.
Find the average height of all the trees between your house and the school.
And then maybe art.
Draw all the trees between your house and the school.
And then maybe geography.
Tomorrow morning, come into school via Kenya and find out about the Maasai. And if you can, take a photo of a peninsula. Don't argue, this country has the best geography teachers in the world!
Well, it's been a long time since our resident angry man of radio comedy has been able to do the Now Show, but after 6 months on tour, he's back. So let's see if a spell in musical theatre has softened him. I doubt it myself. Please welcome Marcus Brigstocke.
Cold out, innit? While we're all buried in snow and ice and the British countryside looks like Kerry Katona's sneezed over it, I thought now would be the perfect time to talk about global warming. Could there be a better time? To quote the big-boned ballroom bigot Anne Widdecombe,
There is no climate change. Hasn't anybody looked out of their window recently?
yes, she says she doesn't remember saying that, but I suppose that's a symptom of talking out of your backside. This is the problem. It's the COP16 climate talks right now in Cancun in Mexico, and the subject is yesterday's news. It's about as relevant to most Western governments and news organisations as brown people dying in a country with no oil. The trouble with the COP16 conference is there are so many nations seeking consensus. They're all trying to make sure that it's fair. It's very much like when you go for a curry with too many people, and then when the bill comes at the end, it's always the same.
I didn't have poppadom.
Yeah, actually, I didn't have a starter.
I shared my rice with Steve.
What should we do, guys? Should we all pay for our own?
No,
because I'm vegetarian, and so the meat courses are more expensive. Shut up! It's always the big fat knacker at the end of the table who had starters, poppadoms and pickles, a main, special rice, two sides, and a naan bread who says...
Well, why don't we just split it between us all?
And that is pretty much the sticking point of the talks in Mexico. That and the fact that so many smaller nations are under the control of powerful manipulators from the big carbon economies. The US has lost its grip entirely now that the Republicans have control of Washington. By the way, could anyone else hear this when the midterm election day came around? 53% of all Republicans don't believe climate change is happening at all. 53% of them have convinced themselves that over 95% of climate scientists are wrong. They've convinced themselves of these facts by placing their fingers in their ears and going, la, 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 not listening to anybody. One of them, who sits on the Congress Energy Committee, Congressman John Shimkus, began his contribution to the House energy debate by reading from Genesis 8, verses 21 and 22. Congressman Shimkus went on.
The earth will end only when God declares it's time to be over. Man will not destroy this earth. This earth will not be destroyed by a flood. God's word is infallible, unchanging, perfect.
Oh, man, we're screwed. This stuff is too important to let idiots dictate what's to be done about it. The Daily Express did it again this week. The front cover of their newspaper. A picture of a car covered in snow and the headline...
Global warming, if only.
Right, now, listen, right? And this goes for the Conservative MEP Roger Helmer, representing our Conservative government in Europe, who tweeted this morning...
As one harsh winter follows another, it becomes ever harder to believe in the great climate scam.
The weather where you live is not the global climate. If you're hard of thinking, get a pen and write it down. The temperature is not the same the world over. The rabid anti-EU loon, Helmer, said...
I know that weather isn't climate.
Yes, but do you?
Yes, a British geography teacher told me.
If you really know that, then why do you find it hard to understand that the rest of that sentence, where you said it's hard to believe, is erroneous, irresponsible and thick? Part of the problem is that people like this treat scientific data like a pick and mix, where they can just leave out the bits they don't like.
Yuck, temperature toffee, yucky. Ooh, yummy, half a fact.
They ignore the average, which shows a steady, dangerous and unprecedented rise in temperature, and thereby prove that temperatures are falling around the world. This is the scientific equivalent of standing at a station and seeing a 6-foot man come through the barrier, then, 20 minutes later, having ignored all other passengers, seeing a midget come through the same gate and concluding that people are shrinking so fast we'll be 1 inch tall by the end of the day. Grow up! I compared last year's failed COP15 in Denmark to a Dr. Seuss poem. The lack of progress seemed repetitive and childish. This year's UN conference isn't nearly as much fun as the Prat in the Hat. It has set its expectations very low. COP16 isn't Dr. Seuss anymore, no. This one's more like Wilfred Owen's tragic World War I poem, Dulce et Decorum Est.
Gas, quick boys, an ecstasy of fumbling.
Yeah, we know it's gas, greenhouse gas, but who's willing to commit to cuts? No? No one? And there it is, the ecstasy of fumbling, as everyone reaches for the briefing notes explaining how it's not their fault and the Senate won't let them do cap and trade anyway.
Dim through the misty panes and thick green light, as under a green sea I saw him drowning.
Yeah, that'll be the delegate from the Maldives. Ignore him, he'll go away.
My friend, you would not tell with such high zest to children ardent for some desperate glory the old lie dulce et decorum est pro 4x4 and plasma screen mori.
Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, with a song I think it's safe to say he's waited his whole adult life to write. Please welcome Mitch Benn.
My hero and role model in all things, Brian Blessed, was in the news this week. Booked for an after-dinner speech at the Savoy, he stormed out, or seeing as it's Brian we're talking about, probably typhooned out after a fellow dinner guest made a derogatory remark about a certain camp sci-fi epic Brian starred in some years ago. Brian! He's louder than everyone! Brian! Had a bit of a ding-dong! Brian! It didn't last long! He's universally loved and feared, and he's won prizes for his beard, and he won't tolerate ignorance, and he climbs Everest in his pants, and he'll give you a right old slap if you say to his face that Frank Gordon was crap. Brian, he's hailing a taxi. Listen, son,
So, after all the fuss about WikiLeaks, we've decided we might offer our own Now Show leaks. And we've asked our audience here tonight if there's any sensitive information about their friends or family or workplace that they would like to release to the world.
The snow is so bad that all my wife has done over the last few days is stare through the window. If it gets any worse, I'll have to let her in. Is there any sensitive information about friends, family, home or workplace you'd like to release to the world? The answer, no. They're all on Twitter. There's literally nothing left to tell.
My friend Michael is only taking part in the Cambridge University student fees sit-in because it's warmer than his flat.
My children have reclaimed their father's titanium hip replacements so they can fashion wedding rings from them. He was recently cremated, by the way. My friend shredded a 10,000-word essay he'd been working on for 3 months, under the impression that he was stapling it.
So, thank you very much for sharing those with us, and I trust the nation are suitably grateful. Thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.
That was the Now Show starring Steve Punt and Hugh Dennis, with Mitch Benn, Marcus Brigstocke, Andi Osho and Laura Shavin. It was written by the cast with additional material from Gareth Gwynn, James Kettle, Phil Whelan's and Susan Murray. It was developed with Bill Dare and the producer was Julia Mackenzie. That was the Now Show on the Friday night comedy podcast from Radio 4. If you want to find out more, visit bbc.co.uk/Radio 4. Have a look round.